In my mind, there's one choice for roofing around here, and I'd go with your best choice. Whether it's time to replace your roof or repair it, Best Choice Roofing provides top-notch roofing services tailored to meet the unique needs of Detroit homes and businesses. They serve the region and inside the city of Detroit, too. You can find out more at bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit. That's bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit, or call 313-474-7031. That's 313-474-7031.
Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Friday, February 28th, 2025. We are almost done with the month of February. We are on the verge of Fat Tuesday, Pączki Day, which I don't have a where we've been, but I feel like, Devon O'Reilly, that that's where I'm going to be going.
Do you have a favorite place?
It's tough. I've tried so many different places. I generally try to go to Hamtramck because that's the traditional thing. There have been times in the past where I've actually waited in the Pączki line and ran into listeners. It was a great little example of community. Very, very cool. I mean, there's so many people that are offering Pączki now and like in different ways.
Pączki beer.
DCD and their Pączki vodka.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big deal in these Midwestern cities with, a lot of Polish population and connections to those roots. Do you have a favorite Pączki or do you partake?
I do partake. I allow myself one Pączki on Fat Tuesday. I think it's only fair. I have, some Polish roots actually, so it's appropriate. I'm going to zag a little bit on terms of a flavor. I don't think this is not many people's favorite, but I love the powdered sugar dusted with the custard in the middle.
Custard?
Yeah, with the plain custard in the middle. That I don't know. I really like that. I like it better than the jelly or some of like the other like chocolate icing-y type of stuff. I like the custard.
Raspberry. All the other things you're talking about, but raspberry.
Yeah.
It's got to be a good raspberry because there's nothing more disappointing than fake raspberry. Have you ever run into fake raspberry?
Yeah. Well, it's real or fake. It's got to have the seeds in it. That's how you know it's the real raspberry versus like a raspberry flavoring in just a jelly.
A lot of times they'll doctor up another flavor to make it raspberry because raspberries are. But since I'm only going to have a couple or one, I'm willing to pay for quality.
Yeah, for sure. I think good news is as Pączki has proliferated in popularity, you can get them everywhere, or more widely. So I'll get mine at Westbourne, but I'll pick up some.
Are you going to get your hands on the Detroit City Distillery vodka, the Pączki vodka?
Ooh, what did they have? They had something I was really interested in. I think they had like a bourbon barrel age Pączki beer. I think that's more my speed. I just don't drink vodka anymore, so it's really hard. I bought the Pączki vodka last time they had it, and it was just kind of like a fruit vodka. But personally, there's nothing I can do with that. So I might go for the Pączki beer this time around.
So you visited one of our cultural institutions, and you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, for where I've been, I wanted to kind of zag a little bit on bars and restaurants. I was recently at the Charles H. Wright Museum partially for work and some of the stuff I do. And so we had a group there and it was really cool. I had been before, but it had been a really long time. And when I went previous time, it was for an event. So I'm saying that to say I had not been in the Still We Rise exhibit, which is kind of the mainstay premier exhibit. I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I was expecting more of a gallery type of like looking at stuff behind glass type of situation. It is so immersive and incredible. I have to say, like, just of any exhibit, this was just an incredible exhibit to go through and experience. It truly is experiential. It's just so fascinating. It literally traces the roots of Black history all the way back to the beginning of civilization and all the way to modern times, essentially. And you literally walk that path and you go into the hull of slave ships. You go and see what the market looked like in Africa centuries ago. It was just an incredible exhibit. I mean, if someone's been there, you're probably like, oh yeah, no duh, Devin, that's there. But I didn't realize that exhibit was so immersive, so interesting. I just can't recommend strongly enough going and checking that out. Now,
I love the Detroit Institute of Arts, but I really encourage people, check out your local museums too. Or I don't want to say secondary because they have different purposes, but the Charles H. Wright or the Detroit Historical Museum. Or I had a fun time one time, and it's very different in vibe from the Charles H. Wright, don't get me wrong. But the greater point of like, go check out different things. The Dearborn Historical Museum I went to.
Yeah, even locally, the Dearborn Historical Museum, the Commandant's Quarters is pretty immersive. You can walk through and experience what life was like in Fort Dearborn back in the late 1700s. So that's really cool. So Detroit Historical Museum is another great one. Even the Dawson Great Lakes Museum on Belle Isle, that's a great one.
I'm a huge fan. I actually used to make model boats with my dad there because those little ponds, whatever, in Belle Isle, especially back in the day, I'm talking the 80s, you could take your model boats, whether they were like radio controlled or we would actually build sailboats.
Oh,
So it would actually working sailboats where you wouldn't have a motor, but you could actually adjust the sails.
that's really cool. Yeah. Check out your local museums. They're often very interactive, very immersive, and you get something a little bit different at each one.
Yeah, the Dawson actually has a part of the old USS Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bridge from a freighter.
Yeah. It's really cool. And you're kind of like in a room and you realize this is like the part of a ship. It's stained glass. It's really, really cool.
Now, when you are traveling around town to visit these things, we're going to have a little bit of a few obstacles, if you will. And, we don't really do the traffic beat here at Daily Detroit, at the traffic on the 8s or whatever, as some other places do. But I want to highlight these two major projects because they are starting up and will have a large impact. Eastbound I-696 from Losser to I-75, that's going to be shut down as part of a big 2-year project. Eventually, they're going to flip sides on that one. I didn't realize that this is a more than $500 million project and 200,000 drivers go through this segment every day. And then another one I didn't realize was M14 and I-96. That's being rebuilt from Sheldon to Newburgh in Wayne County. And that is going to be a $140 million project and 125,000 drivers a day. So if you're on the west side, I feel your pain.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty impactful. Personally, thankfully, it's not going to impact me too much. Not to say I don't maneuver in those areas, but not very often. I'm interested to see how that's going to affect, though, because when you talk about 200,000 drivers every day, they got to go somewhere, right? And they're not going to stop driving. So it will be interesting to see what other roads are affected by that. It could get like really congested on, name a thoroughfare. Yeah, a mile road. It could get really bad. And that would then affect, it's like basically Jared trickle-down effect. It's like, I could say now that I don't think that's going to affect me, but, I could definitely be affected by the trickle-down effect of all the other drivers that have to use other routes.
This also ties into bigger policy discussions that we sometimes have on the show because these repairs are a long time coming. Some of these repairs are decades old. We're talking about full rebuilds here because we didn't allocate the money to do this over time. So we're doing this major rebuild. And that is part of the legislative fight that's going to be brewing over the next few months and years about what to do to fix roads, maybe invest in transit, do different things, because this was all funded through a loan program that the governor put together. Because if you remember back in the day when it was floated to increase the gas tax and do a bunch of other things to raise the money to have the money to actually fix the roads to the level that they need to be. And everybody was like, no.
Yes.
And then we went with the loan program. So now we have this other program, but that money's running out. And this is kind of the tail end of some of these projects. It's going to be an interesting back and forth because we're still going to have a lot of infrastructure to pay for. And then also the inconvenience for people.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the outcome is going to be positive in the sense of you'll have a smooth road to drive on because we all know how frustrating and angry it makes us to drive over potholes and decaying roads. So, if you're upset about this, just think about the outcome. We'll have better roads and we need to invest in infrastructure. It's not sexy, but we got to do it. And we've been just underinvesting for so long that it becomes so necessary. And so I'm hoping we'll get to be able to do as much as possible now. Who knows what federal funding, what state funding lies ahead? This is probably a pretty good bite at the apple to get that funding, and I don't know when we'll have a chance to take another bite.
Let's switch gears. There is an update to the Rensen saga. Since we last were on the show, the Detroit City Council, a committee has denied the request for a study for a historic district, or not recommended that they're going to do a historic district for the Rensen. Now, of course, this will be something that still has to be worked out, but it's a step where it looks like we may not get a historic district for the Rensen and that whole project.
No.
There's been a lot of back and forth. Our member Discord has been very active back and forth about this one. It's interesting to see how this is playing out.
Yeah, I mean, I am a preservationist at heart. I love history. I love historic districts. I love historic preservation, but this ain't it. This is not it. And nor is brilliantly covered some of this in a previous episode. But if you haven't listened, go check it out. But it was wrong to build from the start. And so all this is positing to do is to correct that, to right size the Rensen, to open it up. I don't understand how people aren't grasping that instead of 2 empty glass towers, you're going to have beautiful public space against the riverfront and a better access from driving. Like, what are we not understanding? People, do you really think about that? Do you really want 2 empty old glass towers instead of beautiful park space, public space to use, entertainment, ease of access to the river? Like, what are we holding on to is how I would summarize this. What are we holding on to? Tear those things down. 2 of them. I'm not saying the whole thing. Just tear the 2 towers down. Go with the plan.
It sounds like you have strong feelings, but also our listeners have very strong feelings around that. And keep sharing them. dailydetroit@gmail.com or 313-789-3211. I'm collating them because there are some definite themes around this. And I think we'll definitely address that in a future episode. Now, it wouldn't be Friday, Mr. Friday, if we didn't have a little bit of fun with a new opening.
Okay.
I understand, according to Eater Detroit, there will be new life to the 8 Degrees Plato spot.
Yes, this is what I'm talking about. I love to see this. I myself, I know other listeners were very sad to see it go when 8 Degrees Plato closed. It was a blow to the community, to even, the community geographically and like the beer drinking community, the beer connoisseurs of Detroit, which I consider myself one of. The owners were retiring, so it wasn't like the sad, like, oh, we're struggling to survive. They were retiring, so that's okay. And we didn't know what was going to happen to it. And now it looks like, at least for the time being, or in the meantime, as the place is literally called, we are going to have some life there. We don't have a ton of details, but it does sound like it'll just be a similar concept. It sounds like they might finagle some of the beer taps. I saw something about like a side pour for like Czech Pilsners, which is Pilsners are becoming popular now in the beer community. Just FYI, if you didn't know.
I do not.
European Pilsners are becoming very popular. They're light, very drinkable. I would say good spring, summer drinking beers. So it'll be very timely. I think they're making a few adjustments, but it sounds like it'll be about the same. My one question for meantime would be, one of the things that made 8 Degrees Plato so special was that they had such a wide and diverse selection of beer. Like they would get really rare beers. I think that takes a lot of effort. I'm not sure, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not sure that the new owners are going to have the same depth of variety of beers, and maybe that's okay. I just wonder. It sounds like they're definitely going to be a bar where you can go get a beer. I wonder how much they'll lean into the actual beer store element of it, though. So that remains to be seen.
That will be opening in April. I'm excited because that whole little corner is seeing some interesting things. You've got Craig's Coffee around the corner. I know they're trying to put a little bit of bike infrastructure in over there. And then the windows are up on the old Chung's building. That looks like that's rocking and rolling really fast because it's only a single story. So you can really do some stuff with that and get it moving quickly.
Have we heard? I feel like it's been so long. Have we heard what that actually is going to be?
I do not. I don't know off the top of my head. Somebody let me know. Daily Detroit.
Yeah, I don't think it's widely known. If someone knows, it's not like it was in Cranes or anything like that. Like I haven't seen anything, but I have to imagine they could go multi-concept with that because it's so big. But
oh yeah, for sure. I feel like that would be key. You've got so much opportunity there. You've got 8 Degrees Plato. You've got the pet supply store right there.
Yeah.
You've got
and K9 to 5, the actual like the dog. What would you call it? They do everything: grooming, kennel.
Well, you also have Detroit Shipping Company. You have the Peterborough. You're really starting to get a little bit of mass in that corner where it's like you can just drive, plop, park once, and do a few different things, which I think is so crucial.
I will say because parking is relatively easy over there. Whenever I go to those places, I mean, as Detroit goes, you can park pretty close to where you need to be. So,
and if you're willing to pay, there's that shipping company lot.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good thing. Hey, if you get around in Detroit, if you can park easily somewhere, know people like that.
Now, on our website, dailydetroit.com, I shared some video of steel rising for the new research center that's going up just a few blocks away from the Daily Detroit studio.
I saw that. I saw the steel itself.
It looks good. It's going to be 7 stories, $335 million of a project, and it will house the Nick Gilbert Neurofibromatosis Research Institute, as well as a number of other researchers. And I think this is huge. The 7-story tower is going to be something that brings researchers and high-income folks into the city doing that work, and it's part of that $3 billion MSU Henry Ford project, which, by the way, I learned this recently. I did not realize that the main tower of the Henry Ford development is going to be taller than the Fisher Building.
I heard that and I was blown away. The things that are coming to this area, Jer, I don't think people grasp. I love Michigan Central. Love what they did. Hudson's Tower is really cool. What's happening around us in the Henry Ford future of health concept with the Pistons in Michigan, this is going to be the largest and most transformative project in the city to date. I'm telling you, it's going to be huge. And like you said, it is bringing in exactly the sweet spot of what we need. Housing, jobs, people coming here, high income, college educated inhabitants that kind of really help an economy, a local economy in a city for all urbanists out there. The Research Triangle is something that they're probably familiar with, the Raleigh-Durham Research Triangle. It's built off of this same model of eds and meds. And so that's what we're going to have here. So I'm just really excited about the future of this.
Well, Devon O'Reilly, it's so good to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Jer. Happy Friday. We're finally breaking through with some warmth there. Love to see it, right? Love to see that temp hit 50, which we've had a couple times now. I'm feeling the vibes. Spring is knocking on our door.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Your Daily Detroit. Thank you to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Local media requires local support, and it is much appreciated. Thank you behind the scenes to Cheyenne Nocerini and Luciano Marcone for making us sound just a little bit better.
Yeah.
And cutting out our stumbles and troubles. And thank you, of course, for listening. With that, I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk next week.